You're not waiting for the right time. You're stalling behind fear and calling it logic. But the truth is, no one ever feels ready. Not the greats, not the legends, not the ones who changed everything. They didn't wait. They started. They moved while shaking. They built with bloody hands. They walked into the unknown with no plan B and no guarantees. And that's why the world remembers them. Because domination doesn't belong to the most prepared. It belongs to the most committed. So if you're still waiting to feel ready, you're already behind. Start anyway. Bleed anyway. Fall, fail, rise anyway. The world won't wait. And greatness does it not twice. Start before you're ready. Dominate anyway. You're waiting. Waiting for the fear to go away. Waiting for the perfect moment. Waiting for the timing to feel right. The conditions to line up. The nerves to settle. But let me give it to you straight. That moment never comes. Because the people who win in this world don't wait. They don't ask if they're ready. They decide. They start. They built the plane on the way down. They movie while the rest of the world stands still, stuck in self-doubt and delay. You think the greats waited for clarity? Clarity is a byproduct of motion. Confidence is a reward for those who leap. The ones you admire, the names etched in stone, they didn't begin with certainty. They began with conviction. They didn't know the path. They just walked anyway. And if you don't keep waiting, the world will pass you by. Someone with less talent, less experience, less knowledge, but more urgency, more courage, more fire. They will beat you to it because the battlefield doesn't reward potential. It rewards the one who shows up. So start. Start when your voice shakes. Start when your hands tremble. Start when the page is blank and your heart screams, "You're not enough." Start anyway. Because the truth is, no one ever feels ready. Not Lincoln when he walked into a war-torn nation. Not Edison when his lab burned to the ground. Not Oprah when the camera first turned on. But they moved. They acted. And in action, they found power. The world teaches you to plan, to wait, to study more. But life, real life, it rewards the doers. You don't learn to swim by watching the water. You jump in. You flail. You panic. Then you figure it out. And that's how you grow. Not in the comfort zone, but in the chaos. Not in the perfect tattoo, but in the pressure. That's where you find out who you are. That's where you meet the version of yourself who doesn't make excuses. The one who doesn't need permission. The one who doesn't ask for safety, only for the purpose. You see, waiting for readiness is just a clever disguise for fear. And fear only grows when you feed it. Every day you hesitate, you give fear strength. Every time you pause, you hand over power. But action? Action suffocates fear. Action silences the inner critic. Action turns chaos into clarity. So start before you're ready, not recklessly, but relentlessly. Start with what you have. Where are you? Who are you right now? Because what you have is already enough. It just needs to be activated. The magic isn't in having all the answers. It's in having the audacity to begin without them. The pioneers, the disruptors, the revolutionaries, they were never the most prepared. They were just the most committed. Carnegie didn't know how to build an empire. He just knew he had to. Disney didn't wait for guarantees. He sold sketches out of a suitcase. Ford didn't wait for the assembly line to be proven. He invented it by trusting the process more than the people laughing at him. Because readiness is a myth, but resolve, that's real. Resolve is what builds bridges before the river even parts. It's what lies before the blueprint is complete. It's what walks forward while the world waits for instructions. You don't need a roadmap. You need a reason. A reason so big it makes your fears look like a joke. A reason so alive, it wakes you up before the sun does. a reason that makes the inconvenience worth it. The rejection is worth it. The sacrifice is worth it. And when you lead with that kind of reason, you become unstoppable. Because it's not about how you start. It's about when you start. Most people lose because they never get past. They almost launched the business, almost had the conversation, almost changed their life. But almost isn't legacy, almost isn't freedom, almost isn't anything. So do it messily, do it afraid, do it uncertain, but do it, because hesitation is a thief. It will steal years, it will steal peace, it will rob your future and convince you it's being careful. But careful kills more dreams than failure ever could. You want results? You want transformation? Then dominate anyway. Dominate with the skills you're still learning. Dominate with the scars still healing. Dominate with the pieces still falling into place. Because domination isn't about being the best. It's about being unavailable to defeat, unavailable for doubt, unavailable for excuses, unavailable for being average ever again. It's about walking into the room with your knees shaking and your voice cracking and still saying, I belong here. I'm not backing down. This is mine. And guess what? Most people won't. Most people will talk. They'll read the books, take the courses, collect the certificates, but few will ever move. And that's your advantage. That's your opening. That's your edge. Start before you're ready, and you'll always be ahead of the one who didn't. Because readiness is a feeling, and feelings lie. But commitment? Commitment tells the truth, every time. And the truth is, you're capable of more than you've allowed yourself to believe. You just need to stop waiting for proof, and become it. Become the proof, not for them. Not for the doubters, not for the ones who laughed or left, for you. So you never again have to question what you're made of. So you never again need someone else's approval to believe in your power. So you can look in the mirror and see fire, not fear. Conviction, not compromise. A decision maker, not a dreamer, is still stuck at the starting line. You've waited long enough. You've planned. You've read, you've listened, you've watched, and now it's your turn to do, because the world doesn't remember the ones who prepared perfectly. It remembers the ones who moved with purpose, who fell and failed and bled and rose again, who didn't have it all figured out, but had enough heart to take the hit and keep going. That's what this journey is. It's not clean. It's not easy. It's not safe, but it's real. And real will always be perfect, because perfect never starts. Perfect waits. Perfect hesitates. Perfect dies with the idea still in its hands. But you are not made to be perfect. You are made for impact. And impact is messy. Impact is uncomfortable. Impact is built in the dark, in the early mornings and the late nights, when no one sees you, but you're still moving, still building, still believing. And belief is everything. You can't dominate if you don't believe. You can't rise if you keep shrinking your vision to match your fear. You can't lead if you're still asking permission to be powerful. So stop asking. Stop waiting for someone to say you're ready. Stop searching for signs that were already written in your bones. Stop delaying the life you were born to live, because you're scared to look foolish. Everyone looks foolish at first. The first time you speak on stage, the first video you post, the first business you start, the first step into the unknown. But the great ones, they do it anyway. Lincoln looked foolish until he saved a nation. Disney looked foolish until he built a kingdom from nothing but a mouse. Ford looked foolish until he put the world on wheels. And you might look foolish now, but one day they'll call you brilliant. One day They'll ask how you did it, and the answer will be simple. I started before I was ready, and I dominated anyway. Because domination doesn't wait for confidence. It creates it through repetition, through obsession, through the quiet, relentless, unglamorous grind of someone who decided they would not be ignored. You want to become unstoppable? Then understand this. Every time you show up when it's inconvenient, you're building power. Every time you speak the truth when it's uncomfortable, you're building courage. Every time you say yes to action and no to fear, you're becoming who you were always meant to be. And you'll know it when it happens. You'll feel the shift when you no longer need external motivation, when your calendar reflects your character, when your identity catches up to your ambition. Because this isn't about goals anymore. This is about becoming someone who moves differently, thinks differently, leads differently, not because they're better, but they decided to stop playing the waiting game. They stopped waiting for proof, and they became the evidence. They stopped waiting for the gate to open and built the door. They stopped waiting for their moment, and they created it. That's what dominance is. It's not controlling. It's not power over others. It's power over yourself, your doubt, your delay, your distractions. The moment you learn to dominate yourself, you become a threat to every lie that ever tried to limit you. And here's the truth that no one wants to say out loud. Most people are not outworked. They are outdecided. They haven't fully decided that this is who they are now. They're still halfway in. 1 foot in purpose, 1 foot in comfort. And that split identity, that's what kills greatness. You can't be half committed and expect full results. You want your life to change? Then you've got to burn the plan B. You've got to cut the safety net. You've got to stand at the edge of the cliff with nothing behind you but who you used to be. And jump, because only when there's no turning back do you finally move like your life depends on it. Because it does. You are given this time, this gift, this ire to waste it analyzing your brilliance. You are given it to build something with it. And every day you hesitate, you let that fire cool. Every day you delay, you let someone else go first. Every day you say, not yet, you become a stranger to the future that's begging you to arrive. So no more waiting, no more questioning, no more checking in with people who don't dare to check in with themselves. This is the moment. Right now. You have enough to start. You've had it for years. And the longer you wait to admit that, the further you drift from who you could have been. Start now. Start here. And dominate anyway. Dominate anyway, not because it's easy, but because the alternative is unacceptable. A life of, I could have been, of dreams that rotted in silence, of the potential that was talked about, but never walked out. Do you want that? Do you want to meet the future version of yourself and have nothing to say? No stories of risk, no scars from the climb, no evidence that you ever even tried. Will the pressure go away if you wait? It doesn't. It just transforms into regret. And regret is a lifetime sentence. It is a conversation you replay with yourself over and over, always starting with the words, what if? But not you, not anymore, because now you know. You don't need more time, you need more clarity. And clarity only comes from action, from taking the step you've avoided, doing the thing that scares you, from choosing to move before the confidence arrives. Because confidence is not a prerequisite. It's the reward. And you don't earn it by standing still. You earn it through resistance, through pain, through pressure. Pressure is the proof you're in the right place. Because pressure is where diamonds are made, where leaders are forged, where warriors are tested. You say you want to lead? Then earn it. Not in comfort, not with perfection, but with sweat, with blood, with the kind of effort that most people will never understand, because they never stayed long enough to see who they could become. They gave up halfway, folded when it got quiet, retreated when they were tired, and called it balance. Balance is a lie that the average person tells themselves to justify giving up. But you weren't made for average. You weren't made to stay safe. You were made to stretch, to bleed, to break, to build. And building is messy. It's chaotic. It's unstable. But it's sacred, because every brick you lay in pain becomes a pillar of strength. Every early morning, every ignored temptation, every tiny act of faith, it becomes part of the structure that will one day stand undeniably. You want the life you have? Then do what you will. Say no more often. Train when it's inconvenient. Speak when it's uncomfortable. Lead when no one's following. Finish what you start even when motivation dies. That's what separates the leaders from the lost. Leaders move. They don't just visualize. They realize. They act. They ship. They post. They pitch. They show up broken and still deliver. They show up afraid and still lead. Not because they're fearless, but because they're obsessed. Obsessed with becoming. Obsessed with reaching. Obsessed with making damn sure that when the clock runs out, they have nothing left to give. No energy unspent. No words unspoken. No dream unlived. That's domination. Not flashy. Not perfect. But unshakable. And once you've tasted it, once you've seen what happens when you stop overthinking in just two, you'll never go back. Because the world rewards the finishers. But closers, the ones who start before the applause, the ones who built before they were believed in, the ones who dominate before they feel worthy of it. And here's the wild part. The ones who dominate don't feel ready. They feel the same fear you do. They just don't wait for it. They take the fear and use it as fuel. They take the nerves and use them to sharpen their focus. They take the chaos and convert it into momentum. That's how you rise. Not by waiting for courage, but by creating it. So create it, right now, with one decision, one uncomfortable move, one leap into the unknown. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You need to take the next step, because it's never about the resources. It's about resourcefulness, the willingness to figure it out, to stretch, to adapt, to stay in the fire until the fire becomes you. Adaptability is your advantage. The world is changing fast. Opportunities are shifting. And the ones who win are not the ones with the best plan. They're the ones who move fastest. The ones who pivot when others pause. The ones who build on uncertainty. The ones who launch when they're still learning. The ones who start before they're ready. And dominate anyway. Because action beats perfection. Every single time. You can spend your life preparing, or you can spend your life building. One leads to safety. The other leads to significance. So which do you want? To be remembered for the life you plan to live, or for the one you had the guts to build? You don't get to control how long you live, but you do control how you show up. So show up now. Not next week, not next year. Now, as you are, broken but breathing, uncertain but unshakable, unqualified but unwilling to stay small any longer. The world is waiting, but it won't wait forever. So move, begin, create, lead, and when the voice of fear comes back, and it will, answer it with action, silence it with standards, crush it with consistency, because once you started, once you've chosen forward motion over safety, once you've made domination a mindset, there's no going back, only through, only upward, only forward. Forward is the only direction for those who've made the decision. You cross the threshold. You stared down hesitation. You've broken the chains of perfectionism. And now you own the process. It's not about being ready anymore. It's about being unavailable for retreat. Because once you start living with purpose, once you get a taste of your potential in motion, there is no going back to small talk, small goals, and small living. You become a different animal. Not louder, just clearer. Not harder, just deeper. Your standards rise. Your focus narrows. Your steps carry the weight of someone who knows why they're here. And people feel it, not because you told them, but because your energy announces it before you speak. That's what happens when you dominate, when you stop flirting with your potential and start extracting every ounce of it with intention. You're no longer trying to prove yourself. You are yourself, fully, finally, unapologetically. You stop chasing acceptance and start building alignment. You stop needing approval and start requiring integrity. You stop hoping for change and start commanding it. Because absolute domination isn't about power over others. It's about ownership of self. And when you truly own yourself, your time, your energy, your vision, your mission, you become dangerous to distractions, to doubt, to every excuse that once seduced you into mediocrity. You wake up different. You walk differently. You breathe differently. Because now, it's personal. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving you were right to believe. The right to start when it didn't make sense. Right to trust the vision when no one else could see it. Right to act when everyone else paused. Because now, the world sees what you already knew. You were never waiting on readiness. You were waiting for a decision. And you made it. You chose forward. You chose movement. You chose the version of yourself that doesn't ask for permission to lead. And that version leaves a legacy. Not the kind written in headlines, but the kind is etched into people, into culture, into generations. Because you are bold enough to begin. You are bold enough to stand at the edge of uncertainty and jump. You are bold enough to say, I will not let the fear of not being ready rob me of becoming who I was born to be. And you didn't just say it. You proved it. Every day, you got up when you didn't feel like it. Every decision you made was one that others ran from. Every act of consistency when convenience begs you to stop. That's domination. That's greatness. That's freedom. Freedom isn't handed to you. It's forged in the furnace of action, earned through sweat, failure, and discipline. Freedom is found in the fire of, I'm not ready, followed by movement anyway. You want to feel alive? Then move. Move toward the hard thing. Move toward the resistance. Move toward the version of yourself who doesn't flinch when life throws punches. Because here's the truth. Life will test you. Again, and again, and again. It will ask, are you still committed? Are you still locked in when no one is watching? Are you still dominant, or was that just a phase? And your answer won't come from your mouth. It'll come from your habits, from how you show up, from how you prepare, from how you respond to chaos, failure, and fatigue. Because dominance isn't loud. It's consistent. It's not about hype. It's about handling your assignment when the spotlight is off. It's about moving with the same intensity when no one's clapping, when the likes don't come, when the growth is slow, when you have every reason to quit, and you keep going anyway. That's how legacies are built. Not in one moment, but in thousands of invisible ones. Moments where you could have quit, but chose to continue. And now you're not the same. You've tasted the other side of fear. You've walked through the fire and found out it couldn't kill you. You've proved to yourself that readiness is a myth and progress is a choice. You are proof that greatness is not reserved for the chosen, but for the ones who choose themselves. You don't just dream anymore. You execute. You embody. And that is the difference. Dreamers wait. Doers move. Dominators decide. So decide again, today, tomorrow, every single day, because this game isn't won in one moment. It's won in every moment where you could shrink, but rise instead. Start before you're ready. Dominate anyway. And do it every time life dares you to play small. Because of the old you, the one who hesitated, who overthought, who waited for perfection. That version is gone. You buried them in discipline, in drive, and action. And what rose from the ashes was something sharper, bolder, more alive. So walk like it, speak like it, build like it, live like it, because you're not preparing anymore. You're becoming. You're not hoping anymore. You're commanding. And the world will make room for the one who decided to start before they were ready and dominate anyway.